I was obviously very proud to be offered the job, the country that I hold most dear.
Once again, England crumble in the tournament.
It ended horribly with an inexplicable loss to Iceland.
A 2-1 defeat to the so-called minnows of Iceland.
We went in the game as favourites and came out losing it to the underdogs.
Hodgson's time as a top-flight manager must be in serious doubt.
If you win it, you're a winner, and if you're not, you're an ultimate loser.
Football management is a tough job in a harsh and unforgiving industry. Success is all that matters, and failure is shown no mercy. In nearly 30 years of covering the sport that I love, I've been fortunate enough to watch the great and the good at work, up close and sometimes very personal. But now I want to dig deeper, to find out what it takes to be a celebrated and successful manager, what they were born with, who inspired them, and what they've learnt on their way to the very top of the game, the changes they've seen in football, and the changes they've helped create. These are my football godfathers. Roy Hodgson is one of the most experienced and respected and widely travelled managers in world football. His coaching career spanned over 4 decades, during which time he's taken charge of no less than 16 clubs and 4 national teams, including his own native England.
Football is Roy Hodgson. It's in his DNA.
Looking forward to this. We've got a lot to talk about.
Good to see you, indeed, yeah, indeed.
Over the years, there's been a number of times I've seen you up there, and a couple of occasions down there.
He's experienced every possible emotion in the game.
We are constantly somewhere between sadness and euphoria.
A champion coach right from the off.
You hadn't coached anybody
No,
before.
that's right. It was the real sort of Cinderella debut, if you like.
A 2-time European finalist.
That always will remain as the most romantic moment in my life.
A resilient man who's taken some hard knocks,
That was a massive blow to my pride. I don't know if I came to terms with that very well.
but came back to the very top.
A return to the fairy tale start of my career.
Roy, smashing to see you. And in many ways, how much do you feel that you have come full circle, not just because you're back at Crystal Palace, where you played as a youth, but also to the area where you're from?
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite strange travelling to work each day, you know, through so many areas that I remember so well, and you keep getting memories that come flooding back to you, things that you haven't really thought about for years. So it's really good to be back at Crystal Palace in that respect. I never expected it as such, but it is a question, I think, as you rightly say, of coming full circle.
What was your very first footballing memory?
I could point to one specific game, and that was funny enough, a Chelsea game, which I suppose that's what made it different, maybe. I remember going to Chelsea against Blackpool. I don't know how old I would have been. I'd have guessed 6 or 7 years of age. I remember watching the game on my father's shoulders. It was that famous Blackpool team with Matthews and Mortensen, Harry Johnson, and I remember the crowds, and it seemed to be so much of a bigger game than the Palace games I was watching in Division 3 South. And coming out, in particular, the rush of people, we must have been the shed end, I guess, the rush of people coming out and the crush. So I definitely remember that. We were exceptionally lucky as well, I think, to come in and do our coaching badges at a time when the FA had really started to put some resources into football coaching. And I was very fortunate to have friends like Bobby Houghton in particular at the time who really started before me, and he was the one who really pushed it and dragged me along with him. And I think we just hit it off and found each other, and he was very good looking, Bob, so it was a good fella to have around at the time, because when you went out dancing, there was a good chance that you might attract some attention because he was so good looking.
He definitely was a good mate to have then, wasn't he?
He was a good mate to have in every respect. He came there and they won the league the first year. The second year they did double, and they were winning comfortably. You know, they were a heavy margin, if you like, from the next team in the table. I don't know that they immediately thought, we're going to do this. I think, first of all, they ran the gamut of any Swedish coaches who might possibly be available and want the job, but I think they got knocked back so many times, in the end I was all that was left.
So, bearing in mind that you're aware of that doubt, what was the reception you received like and the level of scepticism?
Well, funny enough, there wasn't any. That's the strange thing, really. It was a...
But you hadn't coached anybody before.
No, that's right, no. I think partly the respect that everyone had for English football at that time was important, and luckily it was a group of players, I think, who, you know, they were staring down the barrel of a gun after the previous season, surviving on goal difference. And I think basically anyone who came in with the sort of enthusiasm and passion that I had, and some almost riding roughshod over everybody just to get ideas across, I think probably that suited them all at the time, because they were quite happy to say, OK, if this is what you think, we'll try and follow you.
Say, luckily, you won the league at your first time of asking, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a magical time, really. It was the real sort of Cinderella debut, if you like, certainly of a coaching career, but also a Cinderella moment, because we were absolutely tipped by everybody to go down at the start of the season, because they'd signed only one player and lost 5. And it was all players who'd come up from the so-called reserve team that were now forming the first team group. We were given no chance, so to actually win it was beyond everyone's expectations, and still, I suppose, that always will remain as the most romantic moment in my life, that journey home when we secured the championship one game before the final. We got on the bus, and in those days players used to drink on the bus anyway, you know, and certainly they were drinking that day, as was everybody else for that matter. And we're driving about halfway down the major motorway that goes from Jönköping through to Halmstad, and suddenly this guy, Stig Nielsen, the team manager, looks at his watch and says, they've got the sports programme on in 5 minutes. You know, they're going to be showing, you know, the images of us securing the championship. So he says to the coach driver, he said, right, next exit, just pull off the exit and drive into the first village, which the guy does. We drive into the village. He does no more than jump out of the coach and knock on the first door that he comes to. And a Swedish fellow opens the door and he says, excuse me, you know, I'm Stig Nielsen, I'm with Halmstad Ball Club here. He said, we've just won the Allsvenskan for the first time ever. It's going to be shown on the TV in a minute. Can we come in? And even more amazing, the fellow said, yeah, please, come in. So suddenly 20, 25, 30 people pile into this guy's front room to watch this 2 or 3 minute excerpt showing Halmstad beating Norrköping to win the championship and jumping around, enjoying it. We thanked him very much, got back on the coach and drove on. I don't think even Leicester would have done that when they had their Cinderella moment. At that time, it was the time of West Germany and Bayern Munich. They were the dominant forces in European football. You know, West Germany were the world champions, and Bayern Munich had been winning what was then the Champions Cup for a number of years. So, quite normally, I think, a lot of teams in Europe, especially the smaller countries like the Scandinavian ones, they say, well, what's the best way to play? Well, it must be like the Germans play. So for several years, they'd adopted the system of man-to-man marking with a sweeper or libero playing behind, doing all the covering. Of course, we came with our flat-back 4. We came with our pressurising, which we learnt in England, because that was what was happening in England. And we also played very high up the field, because in those days the offside rule was a little bit different to what it is today. There was no question of, you know, is he interfering with play or not? So, of course, we got a lot of offsides, which people didn't like. But I think what appealed least of all was the fact that it was 2 young English guys, pretty arrogant young English guys as well, if the truth be told, doing it.
Were you?
Yeah, I think we probably were.
I mean, you're very much seen as pioneers in Sweden for the style of football you introduced. They branded you the enemies of football, but you were winning things, so that was your riposte, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it was. I mean, I think that it couldn't have been easy for people. Sweden's a country with a proud football tradition, a proud sport. They were in a World Cup final in 1958. So, you know, it's not as if we were going to some backwater. You know, obviously they were looking always for some sort of compromise. And that compromise was easy, really. It was a question, OK, we're going to play with back fours. We are going to pressurise the ball, and we'll just compromise on how quickly we get it forward or how early we cross it and how many passes we want to see before maybe we get into the box.
Bit of finesse added.
Perhaps, yeah.
It started so well, and then it went badly.
I'm in the role because I deserve to be in the role. Being sacked was a massive blow. I don't know if I came to terms with that very well.
I'm looking forward to this. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm with football godfather Roy Hodgson, a man who helped revolutionise football in Sweden.
That was a magical time, really. It was the real Cinderella moment.
A cosmopolitan coach whose footballing odyssey has seen him manage in 8 countries during a coaching career that has spanned over 40 years.
I've got something to bring a smile to your face.
Yes, that's wonderful, yeah. Juventus.
A career that is still going strong.
Over the years, what do you think has been the most valuable lesson that you've learnt?
I think the most valuable lesson is the importance of humility. I think football is a game which does humble you, because it is a game, and however well you think your work might be and whatever hopes you have that the work you're doing is going to improve a team and improve results, it is at the end of the day a game, and things will go against you, sometimes undeservedly so. So I think humility is a very, very important quality, and I'm not certain that Bobby and I had that when we were younger, but we've certainly learnt it.
You're doing well, Bob Houghton's doing well, and you decide to go to Bristol City together in what should have been the dream team, and it turned into a nightmare.
Well, it was never a nightmare, really. When I got there, I think I'd only been there about a week when the letter dropped on the chairman's desk saying that unless you can reduce the wage bill by some ludicrous amount, we're going to pull the plug. So from that moment onwards, it's, well, who can we sell and how can we get some money in? And what few good players we had were sort of disappearing in front of our eyes, and we were losing matches, of course. Bob went to Toronto, which he invited me to go with him. But I thought maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I should really try and get another job. And really, that's the only opportunity that came my way, was someone who took pity on me and said, well, he didn't do that badly at Halmstad, we'll give him a go here.
Five great years there. Titles on the bounce. There's now a part of Malmo Stadium which is named Roy's Corner.
Yeah, that's a little group of sort of fanatical fans.
Jag hoppas vilken är det? Det var med er ikväll. Jag tycker atmosfären på stadion är helt fantastisk. Jag gratulerar alla.
Obviously, with all your success there, does it bring a wry smile to you that when you first went to Sweden, there was resistance to your methods and style?
I don't know that there was ever resistance from the players, that's the thing. I think, to be fair, the resistance was from the outside. All it did really was add to our bit of a siege mentality, in a way that, you know, we know what we're doing, they're only jealous because they can't beat us at what we're doing. So we never really felt that we were in any way ourselves as coaches damaged or affected by the fact that there was resistance, because the resistance was coming from the Swedish Football Association, and, you know, this isn't fair, you know, they're playing like this and we can't beat them. I don't think it was a popular appointment. I mean, I don't think people were saying, fantastic, now we've got an English coach who's been at Nurse to Max. I'm certain they would have rather have had the Pep Guardiola or Jose Mourinho of the time. So immediately they're looking at me with some degree of scepticism. They'd heard one or two things about the way I was working, and they thought this guy...
You weren't Swiss, though?
No, although, funnily enough, at the time, people suggested that might not have been such a disadvantage, because Switzerland is 3 countries in one. Yes. And there is a degree of jealousy between the countries, in particular between the French speakers and the Germans, Italians too, but
So as a neutral, you could unite them?
So as a neutral, to be fair, you know, no one could say, well, he's favouring the French because he's Swiss-French, he's favouring the Germans. Basically, they had to see me as a neutral as far as the players were concerned. I think they were quite looking forward to new ideas, fresh impulses, and to be fair, that team that I took over in the 95-96 season wasn't really full of the so-called, you know, big names that people expect. The names that people would know really would, Paul Ince, I suppose, would have been, and Roberto Carlos. They'd have probably been the 2 really big names. I don't know these were the sort of players anyway who were that big that they'd be saying, who's this coming to coach us? The second year we added some bigger names.
At what point as a coach, and where do you have to be to have complete confidence that you can talk to any player on any level about anything?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, I think that you do need a certain amount of lack of self-awareness or certainly a lack of self-doubt. I think you do need a degree of inner confidence that enables you to take on the role and accept that I'm in the role because I deserve to be in the role, and the people who've chosen me believe I have all the qualities necessary to do the role. So I've got to project myself now and make certain that I show those qualities. I think that if you start doubting yourself too much and wondering, I wonder what this player's thinking or that player's thinking. But on the other hand, I think you do need the people skills to a large degree and an awareness of how you treat people and how you react with them. I've always tried very hard to be respectful to players and to make certain that they realise that all the coaching and the things I'm telling them, or maybe sometimes even criticising, it's certainly not them I'm criticising. It's no disrespect to them or what they've done in the game. It's purely a question, really, of trying to get the best out of what they can do for the benefit of the team.
Blackburn started so well, and then it went badly, and it seemed as though you took it badly as well.
I did, yes, I took it very badly. I mean, I've been blessed at that stage, you know. I didn't think that... I think in those days as well, at least for me, the being sacked was a massive blow to my pride, I suppose.
What sort of body blow was it to your confidence the first time you're sacked?
I was more angry, I think, angry at it happening. But then you start after a while turning in on yourself, as one perhaps should do, and then you get a bit angry with yourself.
Because it happened in England, did that amplify your feelings?
It was probably the amount of praise and the way I was treated and looked at in that first year when we did so well. I know I got at least 2 Manager of the Month awards and was nominated as the Manager of the Year, etc., etc. If my head ever became too big, it was a result perhaps of what was said and how I was talked about in that first season, and then contrasting that with the start to the second season where we did poorly. I don't know if I came to terms with that very well. I should think that was something, if I was to look back and see what I was doing, what I was saying, how I was reacting, I would be mortified now and say you shouldn't be doing those things, but you do it, unfortunately.
Hindsight is a wonderful gift.
It is a wonderful gift. I don't have it.
You go on your travels once again, Denmark, Switzerland, Finland. I'm just wondering, how almost portable was your methodology?
I think that systems of play and the actual tactical side of the game is, I think they're very portable. I think they definitely transfer, quite easily, because basically most people would agree that when you lose the ball, it's good if you get it back. And they would also agree that when you've got it, it's not a bad idea when you're in the other team's half of the field to get it somewhere close to the goal where you might score. It's not that complicated, that side of it. What doesn't necessarily transfer is the leadership aspect, how you're going to approach the subject, how you're going to get that message across, how you're going to persuade, if you like, this new group of players, different country, different culture to the one that you're used to.
How do you reflect now on your all-too-brief time at Liverpool?
I went in with my eyes open, knowing that it could be difficult because the people actually who were chosen to appoint me were probably not going to be the people who were going to be there fairly short into my reign. I think football is a game which does humble you.
I'm with Roy Hodgson, a football godfather whose managerial journey has seen him coach 16 club sides and 4 national teams.
That was a massive blow to my pride. I don't know if I came to terms with that very well.
A man who has experienced the extremes of the highs and lows of football.
We are constantly somewhere between sadness and euphoria.
In 2007, Roy was appointed manager of Fulham. He rescued them from the brink of relegation and took them to the Europa League final.
I've got something that's going to guarantee to bring a smile to your face. That's the programme.
Oh, yes, that's wonderful, yeah. Juventus.
Fulham against Juventus.
Yeah, that was a wonderful game.
Fulham really was 3 wonderful phases for you, wasn't it? To avoid relegation on the last day.
Yep.
That incredible UEFA Cup run, which led to you being voted by some distance the LMA Manager of the Year.
That was a wonderful period of time. It was fantastic, really, to get that opportunity, because that was also a return to the fairy tale start of my career. It wasn't quite Harmstead Ball Club 1976, but there was an element of it. When we played Manchester City, we were losing 2-0 at half-time. Basically, we were mathematically down with 4 or 5 games left to go. And I remember that team talk, what you do a group of players where, they know the league table as well. And they're 2 goals to it out. I think I just did the classic, let's win the second half. The old classic thing that you say, But to be honest, I certainly didn't go in there with any Churchillian-type speech saying we can still do this, because, you're looking at players who are looking at you thinking, well, we can't still do this, basically.
The city of Manchester Stadium. What's happening? Oh, my goodness!
What a goal!
But who to, Paul?
Fulham are winning 3-2. Cameron's got put through by Bullard on the left. 1v1, he's getting chased back, and he hits a peach of a shot with his left foot into the top corner. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. 3-2 to Fulham. I can't believe it. This game has been unbelievable. What a finish.
It was a mountain to climb, but we We did it, and it was nice to score that winner. You know, 2-2 would have been a good result, but 3-2 was really extraordinary. That was an enormous boost, and then you go to the last game needing to win against a Portsmouth team that really reached the FA Cup final, and you win that one, and suddenly you realise that the angel is still there, the one that's been looking after you for so long is still on your shoulder. It's quite amazing, really, that we did so well, because all of the teams we played, funnily enough, as we got to the knockout stages, had come from the Champions League.
They dropped down.
And dropped down. Whereas we'd come from playing a team in Lithuania and a team in Russia, Amkar Perm, just to get ourselves in the first, you know, into that little group of clubs. And there, you know, it wasn't easy. Basel, when we beat Basel, they hadn't been beaten there. And their home ground in the group stages. Roma, of course, we had.
Wonderful run. Yeah, the whole country behind you as well. What did it mean to you when you won that award?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was some very nice things said. Alex, you know, made some very, very nice comments about it. So, yeah, it was a very proud moment. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, let's be candid. It must mean a lot more than the likes of us in the media saying nice things about you.
It's very difficult to be liked by everybody, accepted by everybody, respected by everybody. But if you can choose which body of people that you would most like to respect you and say good things about you in your profession, it will be your fellow professionals who are living the same life, really, the same highs, the same lows. You know, we are constantly somewhere between sadness and euphoria. You know, there's nothing really in between. And sometimes the danger of that is that sometimes in your sadness and despair at a poor result, you perhaps shouldn't be so sad and so despairing because the team has played extremely well, and vice versa. In your euphoric moments, you should be watching out because yes, you've got the result, but actually you didn't do well at all. The team played very badly. You were just unbelievably lucky.
Well, as you know, often you cannot apply common sense and logic to football.
No.
Quite often.
We have to try to, that's the only thing. We have to try to. I'm not a fan because they're so ridiculously simplistic. Shots on target, what does that really mean? It's the same with possession. Corner kicks, well, the ones that really annoy me are comparing players. They're comparing a player who's played 35 games and his percentage success with a player who's played 8 games. And those things don't make sense to me. But
I blame the media myself.
You guys obviously know what people tune in to watch. I just don't tune in to watch that.
You know what they say, lies, damn lies and statistics.
I know that one.
Making an entrance, Roy Hodgson, who saved tiny Fulham from relegation and took them to a European final, now has to mastermind another resurrection, this time at Liverpool.
How do you reflect now on your all too brief time at Liverpool?
Well, I had to take the job, really, you know, when it was offered to me, because Liverpool is a fantastically big club. You know, when a club like Liverpool comes calling, you don't say no. But I also went in with my eyes open, knowing that it could be difficult, because the people actually who were chosen to appoint me were probably not going to be the people who were going to be there, even fairly short into my reign. And, of course, that's what happened. And we didn't get the results. That's the bottom line.
His fears were confirmed, with the new owners deciding he wasn't the man to take the club forward.
I don't feel any bitterness with regard to the owners or the club itself. I'm still privileged to have been there, albeit for a short period of time. And I don't honestly think I could necessarily have done an awful lot more. Perhaps I made that mistake of following a coach and coaching. Jamie Carragher said to me, maybe if you'd have come in and done a bit less coaching and a bit less tactical work and, you know, maybe just a few more games and five-a-sides and, you know, cheery practices, whereas really what you did, you carried it on as it had been, basically, because there had been a coach there before in Benitez who'd coached the team very well and was tactically disciplined. I suppose I'm carrying on the same way. Maybe with hindsight, but you don't do that. You know, that wasn't me, really. I mean, unfortunately, they got rid of one type of coach and replaced, or manager, and replaced him with exactly another similar type of manager.
It ended horribly with an inexplicable loss to Iceland.
No losses are inexplicable, I'm afraid. You know, you lose because you don't do what you need to do on the day. And we went in the game as favourites and came out losing it to the underdogs.
We're here to talk football. Come on, take a seat.
I'm with Roy Hodgson, a football coach with over 40 years' experience.
If I was to look back and see what I was doing, I would be mortified now.
A man who won a league title in his very first season as a coach.
That always will remain as the most romantic moment in my life.
He is someone with football running through his veins, who's passed on his knowledge to hundreds of pros down the years.
If we do this, you all buy into it.
In 2012, Roy took the position that many coaches regard as the pinnacle of their career, managing their national team. For Hodgson, that meant England.
England. You'd managed other nations. Did you go in with your eyes wide open that England would be different?
I knew it would be very different in terms of perception and the pressures of the job, because, you know, it's a much bigger football nation, you know, with respect to Switzerland, with what, 8 million people at the time, I think maybe 10, and Finland with 6. And what's more, here I'm coming back to the country of my birth, the country that I hold most dear, and what's more, a country which really is renowned for its football passion. And, of course, for the scrutiny that being an England manager brings with it. So I suppose I went in with my eyes wide open in that respect. I'm looking forward enormously to the task ahead. Everyone knows it's not an easy one. But I'm also hoping that everybody, fans, supporters, everybody within the country will get behind the team, because it's the team that counts. It's the team which will win us matches. And what I would do is I'll do my very best to make sure the team is as well prepared as possible for the tasks that lie ahead. So I'm grateful for the chance to be the manager of England, and I'm really looking forward to it. I didn't think it was going to be that much different to coaching the other national teams in terms of the work we would do in the training sessions and in preparations for the game, and that was really very much the case. I was obviously very proud to be offered the job, because if you treasure your football career, I don't think you're going to get a better accolade to the career you've had than being offered the job of your own national team at the end of it. So it was a really good moment when I was offered the job, and I've got to say that the 4 years, when I look back on them, I look back on it more with pleasure and pride than anything else. I'm just obviously, like everyone else, connected with England, and that would include very much the players I work with. We were all very disappointed that when it came to the tournaments, we weren't able to recognise some of the potential which I thought we'd shown in the qualifying periods.
You're not the first England manager not to have enjoyed success at tournaments. We don't seem to be very good at tournaments. Are you any the wiser as to why, having had the job?
I think we'll always have a slight problem. The tournaments come in that period, a month after a very long season has ended, and it doesn't always seem that we can harness the players' energy and skills in quite the same way as we can in those early qualifying matches in September, October, November, where we seem to play so well.
What about mentally? Are England strong enough or as strong as their counterparts?
Yes. Oh, yes, I think so.
It's just a very disappointing performance. I'm glad to see the back of it.
Roy Hodgson, bye-bye, just like the EU.
I'm no longer the England manager. My time has been and gone. I'm really, really disappointed. I didn't see the defeat coming. Both myself, my coaching staff and the players, of course, we feel very, very sad that we couldn't deliver what we wanted to deliver.
It ended horribly with an inexplicable loss to Iceland, but that doesn't tarnish your reflection of your time with England, that one specific game.
Well, it's like I've been saying all along. I mean, if one game is all it takes, then really we might as well not have bothered with the 4 years and the 4 years work in between and just thrown 11 players out. And if you win it, you're a winner, and if you're not, you're an ultimate loser. I don't agree with that philosophy, really. And no losses are inexplicable, I'm afraid. You know, you lose because you don't do what you need to do on the day. It can be down to mistakes, it can be down to refereeing decisions, it can be down to climatic conditions. There's so many things can change a football match. And, you know, as Iceland proved, you know, they're not quite the impossible or hopeless team that we in England had made them out to be. I still think that with the players we had and, you know, the way we'd done going into the tournament, that it was set up for us to win the game, of course. And we went in the game as favourites and came out losing it to the underdogs. I think you'll see a lot of teams as well that you don't, at this moment, consider as being any good at all, or teams which, you know, we as football experts might think, well, they're not a threat. I think some of them might prove to be a threat.
You actually foretold this, because when you addressed the Cambridge Debating Society at Cambridge University, and this was some time before the tournament, you said there's no easy games at international level anymore. And you said, I'm not just saying that. For instance, Iceland have just beaten Holland.
Yes, there you go. They beat England too.
The very first time you walked along the dugout, were you tempted to look up on the terraces, the spot where you stood as a boy?
It's not there anymore, I'm afraid. It's the Holmestone Road stand now. It was the Holmestone Road terraces, so I couldn't actually look at that. But it was an interesting experience, I must say, and it was tremendous, the reception that I got from the crowd, it is one of the best supportive crowds, I think, in the league, and it was really a very moving occasion to walk that quite long distance we have from the tunnel to the dugout and see so many people wishing you well and offering their support and hoping that, you know, as a manager and coach, you can do something to help their team move up the table.
If Roy Hodgson now could go back in time, what advice would you give to a young Roy Hodgson who just started out his journey?
That's a very good question. I know what advice I would give to young coaches starting out today. I'd often say to them, don't be too anxious to start at the highest level too early. I mean, I didn't do that anyway, really. I did it with first teams, but at least it was in a different environment to the sort of even somewhat toxic environment we have sometimes at coaching and management level here in England at the league clubs, because I think you need to get some coaching behind you before people start making those very stern judgments they're going to make on you and your ability. And there's such a risk these days that we're going to lose a lot of good coaches because they'll get a good job pretty early on without having a lot of experience to fall back on. And before they know where they are, the results won't have gone the way the club wants. They'll find themselves out of work, and a couple of sackings later, their career's over. So I think my advice to them would certainly be, don't be afraid to take it a little bit easy in the beginning and get in the game and stay in the game and get your coaching and wait for those bigger moments to come along, and don't necessarily feel aggrieved that you haven't stepped straight into the top job the moment you've hung your boots up.
This career has spanned over 4 decades, 16 clubs, 4 countries. Do you still enjoy it as much, or do you possibly enjoy it more?
Certainly as much, Jeff. I mean, it's hard to quantify, really. I know that in the year that I didn't work after England and was debating whether I wanted to continue or not, the longer the year went on, the more I felt you could still be doing this, really. You know, you've got the energy still, you've got the passion and the enthusiasm still. You're as fit probably as you've been for a number of years. You know, you could be doing this. So when a great opportunity came along, and when Steve Parish and Dougie Freedman, you know, called me and said, you know, what about coming to Crystal Palace? It was fantastic. It was just the right time for me, really.
When you finally hang up the tracksuit, how do you think you'll look back at your career, and how do you think you would like to be viewed as a coach?
I like to be viewed, I think, as a coach who was serious about his job and serious about his work, but was personable and could develop, you know, good personal relationships with the players he's worked with. But I don't know that when I hang up my tracksuit, because I think the boots were hung up a long time ago, and if they weren't, they certainly should have been. I don't know that my legacy will bother me that much. I feel satisfied with this career. I think I've been extremely lucky. When I started in '76, I never dreamt I'd be having a prestigious interview with such a prestigious interview.
You old flatterer. You old flatterer.
As you here today, so I suppose I should be lucky with that, Jeff.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.